Hi, I'm here with Max Hamrick, the weaver here at Colonial Williamsburg. Max, what are you working on?
I'm making a piece of cloth to make stockings for Scotsmen that wear kilts today.
Oh.
This will be cut on its bias, and it'll make diamond-shaped socks. It's made of wool. It's made in a stockinette weave, and I like doing this weave for you because you see we have the red right here. We're going to go with the white, and you're going to be able to see every bit of cloth that we made right here. Now, I want to run this a minute at a rate of speed that would allow us to make a living in the 18th century.
Oh, yes.
And then we'll stop and take a look at how it works.
Okay.
I need to pass this shuttle across 15 times to make half of that square. I do want to tell you that the machine that makes your blouses, your button-up shirts, your blue jeans, the sheets on your bed, that machine does exactly what I'm doing today. The major difference between this one and a modern machine is that I cannot turn this one on.
Right. No electricity, huh?
When you all are not here to talk to, I sure do miss being able to turn the thing on. Now that is 15. Let's take a look at how it works. What we have here is 640 strings. Each string is wound up on the beam at the back of the loom.
Yep.
And it remains a string until we weave it into cloth. Each string is threaded through a little eye right here called a heddle. See between my fingers there?
Yes.
One string, one heddle. The heddles are attached to harnesses. I like the word harness. Harness lets me raise and lower the strings. When I step on this pedal right here, I've made a tunnel. You ever make a pot holder on a little loopy loom?
Yes.
Over, under, over, under, over,
yes.
under? That string just went over, under, over, under, over, under, 640 string. Bang, it's part of the cloth now.
Aha.
Watch right here. I'm going to take every string on top and put it on the bottom. Every string on the bottom goes to the top. Bang, right back through. And that beats going over, under, 640 strings. This piece is a stockinette. It needs to be stretchy. I need a third tunnel, which is called a shed. When I change pedals this time, all the strings won't move. I want 2 up and 2 down. See if you can see that right there.
Oh, wow.
The pattern that you're making depends on which strings you go over and which strings you go under. If I were to work and not talk, I'm running about 44 to 46 inches of this an hour, which would make me a meager living in Nottingham, England, where this cloth was made in 1775.
Wow, a little over a yard in an hour.
A little over a yard in an hour.
Wow.
We are sort of looking for somebody with no gray hair to put on this thing so we can find out how fast it will run. So our time studies tell us that we could make a meager living in the 18th century, which indicates that we are making this piece of cloth pretty close to the way that it was made at the time of George Washington and King George III.
And who would be doing the weaving? Where would this be taking place?
In the 18th century, this piece would have been made in England, but once the trouble with England starts, when you began shooting at them in the war, you absolutely have to have factories in Virginia. And there is a factory called, of all things, the Williamsburg Manufactory here at Williamsburg, just outside the city limits on Queens Creek. A lot of hempen and a lot of linen made into cloth there for the Virginia military, and anything extra was auctioned off on the steps of the Raleigh Tavern from time to time. The business did really well until the war was over, when Virginians went back to trading with England again.
And it's less expensive to buy from England.
Much less expensive. During the war, the Industrial Revolution kicks into high gear.
Yep.
And once the war's over, machines make cloth, people don't. And it's easier and cheaper to buy cloth from England than it is to make cloth here. What I've got here is called a card. This is a woolen card. Same word as playing card, a Christmas card. And here in Virginia, we taught children good working habits, about the time they were 3. After all, if you can eat and walk and talk when you're 3, you ought to be able to do some work. And the idea was to teach and instill good working habits. We're eating sheep. This is Leicester Long. This sheep you see here at Williamsburg, they are by today's standard a very unusual breed of sheep, but they have been bred into almost every major domestic breed of sheep in the world to make them longer and shinier. Now, even though we're not making cloth, this is something we taught kids to do. And what we're doing here is aligning fibers. This is not a taking out of trash. Now, you certainly can take out the trash if you see some. But the vast amount of wool that we would cart up in Virginia never made its way to a spinning wheel, because remember, our cloth is coming from England. So most of the wool that was carded up was done to teach those good working habits.
Oh.
And it probably ended up in a whole cloth quilt.
Oh, as batting.
Yeah, a pillow is batting. You pull that backwards and roll that right up.
Huh.
And it should look a little more like batting to you
Yep.
than what you've seen before.
It does.
Now, in the 18th century, this is called a bat. Baseball bat, woolen bat. Batting would be a basket full of these things. And we can just pull that apart. You can look at that one. And we'll take this one to the spinning wheel. And we'll run the spinning wheel a bit for you to see. Now, men made spinning wheels, but traditionally, and pretty much throughout English society, this is a domestic chore. A woman could make a living at it. It wouldn't be a good living. But the ratio of wool yarn making to wool cloth making would be 12 hours of spinning for 1 hour of weaving.
Wow.
Now, weaving was an apprentice trade. When I finish with that piece of cloth, it isn't finished. It needs to go to a fuller or a finisher who will wash it, make it dimensionally stable, and put whatever sort of finish on it he would like. You could make a blanket out of it. This one will be made into stockings. We don't want it to be real fuzzy. But a finisher spent a 7-year apprenticeship learning to be a finisher. A weaver spent a 7-year apprenticeship learning to be a weaver, and a dyer who would make that red spent a 7-year apprenticeship. So in the 18th century, one person did not do all of those things. It took many professions to get through. I want to do this for you because I think this is fun. This is no way to run a spinning wheel. But see the fibers? 1, 2, 3.
Oh.
And I get lumpy fuzzies when I do that. Fibers, yarn. The real skill involved in yarn making is the ability to make an even, consistent yarn the size you want with no lumps in it. In playing with a spinning wheel like this, you can see what is happening, but we're making yarn that looks a little bit like Q-tips
Yes.
on a string. Go back to using the wheel properly. This makes best a very small yarn.
And it's very smooth when you're doing it the proper way.
It's a good bit smoother than it was.
Yep.
But remember, in the 18th century, I wouldn't want the boys at the tavern to know that I fooled with it.
We won't tell.